That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Trade Talk. We're wrapping up the Justice League books by talking about Mark Waid's first official volume on Justice League. I'd been doing Morrison's run, but I really do like this first volume of Waid's run, and I just had never read anything past it, because I never bought anything past it. But I do feel that it's pretty cool to see the team now passed off to another writer, even though, of course, Waid, as well as a couple other writers, stepped in for filler arcs during Morrison's run. But this is arguably the most famous Justice League story from the era in which Grant Morrison was writing Justice League. Like, you know, New World Order, Rock of Ages, Tower of World War III, all of those arcs are like really important and build the team and create this level of icon that the book gets up to. And then that's all handed over to Waid. And Waid kind of like wrecks it, but in a really interesting and compelling and, to be honest, fucking cool ass way. So let's talk about something that I find interesting, but first we'll talk about just the general premise of the book. Batman, being the paranoid character that he is, has kept files on each member of the Justice League on ways to take them down should they ever betray the Earth or fall under someone's control who is evil, like a telepath, or like what happened a couple years later with Maxwell Lord controlling Superman. So anyway, we have that is Batman's contingency plan for the Justice League, is to have ways to take them down. The plans themselves fall into the hands, or are stolen by Ra's al Ghul, who knows how Batman thinks and is certain that Batman has these plans. So he steals them via Talia and uses them on the Justice League right before he has this other master plan to wreck the world so he can take control of it and restore nature to a proper sense of balance. And that's where the title comes from. Tower of Babel. That's the wrong direction, Ian. Tower of Babel. Ra's al Ghul's evil plan is to transmit a frequency that affects the speech area of the brain, so at first no one can read anything, and secondly, the second phase of it, no one can understand anything anyone says. So there's the general plot of the book. Batman finds out way too late what's going on, tries to warn the League, but ultimately the damage has been done. So even after they defeat Ra's al Ghul, there are some deep scars left in the League, and very few of them trust Batman now, forcing him kind of to leave and casting a huge shadow of suspicion on Robin, Tim Drake at the time, with Young Justice, and Nightwing with the Teen Titans. Though I think at that point they were just going by the Titans. So, and even though Oracle was in the League, she's now out, basically, effectively too, because she's so tied in with Batman that they assume she had some part of it. So none of the League members trust her either. So Batman's kind of ruined everything. So yeah, this is really interesting because it's worth talking about the meta context for why Grant Morrison did what he did with putting the League together. Because the perception at the time was it could never work again. It was really simple back in the day. but the continuities got too complicated, and it just didn't seem believable to have these larger-than-life personalities all on the same team, all at the same time together. The threats would seem inconsequential, and the characters wouldn't work well together. They'd just all come off like jerks. And Grant Morrison said, no, the Justice League is cool because it's the greatest heroes working off of each other and sometimes butting heads with each other. And so let's do it. Let's put the Justice League back to what it should be. Let's make Justice League of America great again. Or I suppose Grant Morrison would have put it more like, let's make Justice League of America great again. That was terrible. Anyway. So as soon as he leaves, what's literally the first thing that happens? We write Batman out of the Justice League. We immediately have taken Batman out of the Justice League the second Grant Morrison leaves the book. But, and of course, like, he comes back and he still fights with the League and all that stuff. But, like, the first step is to cast suspicion on him and effectively remove him. Bruce, of course, walks away himself. He doesn't even wait for a vote. He knows the damage he's done, but he's not going to say he was wrong. Because ultimately he is right. Mind controllers take over the League all the fucking time. It constantly happens. Why wouldn't you have a contingency plan to deal with each other? Maybe if Wonder Woman had a contingency plan to fight Superman, fucking... What is it, OMAC Project? Yeah, that's right. Fucking this shit wouldn't have happened in OMAC Project just a couple years later. Gotta find it. God, this is forever and a day. Not a good story, but damned if this Wonder Woman vs. Superman fight isn't the coolest shit. Where's it at? I'm gonna be real pissed if I find out it's wrong. Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, Greg Rucka wrote this. So, we got this whole situation that happened back in OMAC Project, where Maxwell Lord took over Superman's mind and was forcing him to hurt people and do things, of course, he wouldn't want to do, like attack Wonder Woman. And so we have this huge, drawn-out fight of Wonder Woman and Superman just fucking going at it with, like, nothing she can do. She breaks her fucking wrist at one point. And just has to, like, come up with ways to beat the shit out of him. So she has to get behind him and slam her bracelets on his ears to affect his super senses. God, I gotta find the wrist break, because that's the best fucking part. Yeah, so she punches him... Or, no, he grabs her wrist so hard that he breaks it. So she gets down and... there's the panel right there. That was the moment. She gets down and she has to move her bracelet up to literally be a brace for her wrist so she can continue fighting. And it all comes down to her having to get control of Maxwell Lord, put the lasso truth around him, and get an answer as to how she can stop Superman from being under his control. And he says the only way to do that is to kill him. And she does it. So that's OMAC Project. Not good, but that's a good moment. Why didn't Wonder Woman have a contingency plan? Because she's honorable. Because she trusts Kal-El. Clark, Superman, whatever. She trusts him. She wouldn't want to scheme and think of a way to beat him, ahead of time. She'd deal with it in the moment. Okay? And dealing with it in the moment meant killing someone. Not having a way to incapacitate Superman so that you could think of a long-term solution of how to deal with the thing led to a man's death. OMAC Project's the best argument for Tower of Babel, hands down. It really is. And you'll have to excuse me because I swear I'm about to sneeze, but I'm going to maintain my professional composure and not do that because I'm a boss. But anyway, So that's like kind of the big thing is like, okay, we immediately remove Batman because maybe Grant Morrison is right and the team can work amazing together. You can make these gigantic level, apocalyptic threats possible and yada, 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 yada. But you know what? Not everyone's Grant Morrison. Not everyone can write like Grant Morrison. So sometimes to write the Justice League, we need to create tension on the Justice League. Which I'm totally okay with. Totally okay with. Surprisingly so. So long as they overcome it and work through it. I don't know if that happens. Because I've never read beyond Tower of Babel. So shame on me. Shame on me. Obviously it does, because marketing at the very least. We get, them working together in the future again. Batman's been on the Justice League since, I know that. But, there's that underlying thing. Am I okay with tension existing on the Justice League? Yes. Hands down, yes. Don't even have to think about it. Am I okay with tension existing on the Justice League affecting the stories, making it so we can't have a Justice League book of the main team? Fuck no. That's the important distinction for me. I don't want there to not be an A-list Justice League team because a writer's too afraid to write them all correctly. I don't need a Star Trek situation where these are the greatest heroes ever and they're never going to have a disagreement or fight on anything because they're so far above us. No. Superheroes are the modern mythology, not the striving vision. They have elements of it. They have elements of striving vision, but they still have deep flaws and interpersonal conflicts. Like the Olympians. They are the modern myth. So, yeah, I'm totally fine with this. I want to talk a minute about Bruce's plans, because I really, really like this, and I want to compare it to something else that did it. So, for Martian Manhunter, the plan was to hit him with a rocket filled with nanites that, once exposed to oxygen, will immediately catch fire, and they cling to the very molecules of his body, so he cannot shape change his way out of it. For Aquaman, he is blasted with Scarecrow's fear toxin and is made afraid of water, forcing him to get weaker and weaker as time goes on. Plastic Man is hit with a freeze bomb and broken with an ice pick into about 1 million pieces, which is pretty cool. What else happens here? Oh, Green Lantern is given a hypnotic suggestion and believes he is blind. Again with the hypnosis. I'm beginning to think it wasn't a Grant Morrison thing, it was just a 90s thing. Hypnosis is really easy or something. The Flash is hit with a bullet that vibrates in his spine. So he can't let it pass through him. Its molecules vibrate or some, I don't know, random bullshit. And gives him seizures at light speed. And a microbot is injected into Diana's brain, giving her the perception that she is fighting an opponent of equal strength to her in every way. So Wonder Woman's body is going through all kinds of physical labor as if she is in the fight of her fucking life Meanwhile, she's actually unconscious and just giving herself a heart attack. So yeah, those are the plans. And I love literally every... Oh, Superman, right. Superman is exposed to a piece of red kryptonite that has been... Or a piece of kryptonite that has been irradiated to the point of it changing to the color red. Which causes his skin to go translucent, and the solar radiation that usually powers him like a solar battery to affect every nerve-ending muscle fiber and internal organ, putting him to the point where he will not be dead, but he will wish he is dead because it's just too much for his body to handle. Interesting. That one I'll say is a little iffy. But as for the methods to defeat the Justice League, man, that's so much better than Scott Snyder's bullshit. Endgame sucked. Oh. Oh, man. Anyone that knows me knows I don't like Scott Snyder's Batman run, and I've gone over and over, and I don't feel like just sitting here and shit-talking Scott Snyder. But, like, for anyone that liked Endgame because, oh, it's so cool that Batman came up with ways to defeat the Justice League, go read Tower of Babel. Or, fuck, go watch Justice League Doom. That movie's based off this, not very well, but it's better than Endgame. So anyway... the Justice League's been defeated by Batman's plans in the hands of Ra's al Ghul. I love the plans, though, so much. All of them... The important thing is they're both clever, and a lot of them are really, really well thought out and smart. Like, on a character level smart. Not all of them. I think the Plastic Man one's kind of eh. I think the Aquaman one is really, really clever, but doesn't really have much bearing on the character besides just creating kind of a unique idea that making Aquaman afraid of water. Same for Martian Manhunter. But Wonder Woman, Kyle, Flash, and to a level Superman, I really, really like. So I'm going to go through those. The Superman one's probably the weakest of that bunch, but the idea of Batman having a way to take down Superman that's not hit him with a green rock, but does involve kryptonite, overpowering Superman, getting him so he can't control himself, so that he is just in unbelievable, excruciating pain, is a really, really clever idea, because Superman's not used to pain. Like, Superman has definitely felt pain, particularly, like, mainline continuity Superman. But you'd be hard-pressed to convince me Superman has felt unbearable physical pain. The kind of, like, someone going through serious medical ailment kind of stuff. So to do that to Superman, it's going to be such an alien feeling to him, given that he's the Man of Steel. And it's non-lethal, which is, I think, a really, really clever way to go about things. It's a unique turn on him, and it's just gonna knock him the fuck out. So I really like that side of it. I'll talk about a problem I have with it in the context of the story. But that one's pretty clever. What else? Flash, again, this one's still on the weaker side, but knowing that Wally would rather let something pass through him than try to avoid it or do something else about getting shot at. And just putting him into the state of having a bullet in him that is causing seizures. Again, that's really clever, especially that it just fucks his entire life. They get him out of it, and he's like, God, there were entire days where I wished I just prayed for death. How long was I out? 22 minutes. Because, yeah, he's at light speed. And he can't do anything about it. It's really clever. I like that one, too. Not as deep on a character level, but there's enough of it there that I really liked. The other two, though, Wonder Woman and Green Lantern, are so fucking complex and perfect. Wonder Woman's I really like, and here's the moment. Here's the gauntlet being thrown down, folks. You ready? Batman could beat Vegeta or Goku. I know. I'm like so tempted to look at the comments right now. Let's take a look at that. No, I don't got any comments raging at me that I'm talking crazy, but the way in which Batman takes down Wonder Woman, realizing that she has a natural drive of competition, that she is an incredibly competitive person and will not give up on a fight. Once she's committed to fighting someone, once she's locked in combat, she is there. That's her. She's focused. She wants to win no matter what. As long as the cost is hers, not other people's, to be fair. But yeah, Wonder Woman will fight to the bitter end. Knowing that about her is the thing that lets Bruce take her down by creating this idea of an opponent that's perfectly her equal. That's really, really clever, and it's a really interesting character insight into Wonder Woman from Bruce's perspective. But also, that's the same legit mentality that Goku and Vegeta have. I will give the caveat, I don't think this plan would work on Trunks or Goten or Goku, or not Goku, Gohan. God, names tonight. I don't think that strategy would work on them. It damn sure would work on Vegeta and Goku. Assuming they can't figure it out before they've exhausted themselves, yeah, that's gonna work on them. Anyway, so yeah, well, lots of craziness going on there. They eventually decide to work together to figure out how to... oh, wait, shit, I didn't talk about Kyle. I'm sorry. Kyle's one I really like. Making Kyle think he's blind so he can't use the ring is really, really smart. Because, alright, here's the game, children. Let me grab my bookmark. If you are watching at home right now and you have access to a sketchpad, please get it out now, because we are going to play a game. Boys and girls, where are my pencils? I had yeah, there we go. I had like a whole box of pencils and I couldn't find it. So we're gonna play a game. Doesn't have to be much. We're just gonna do a quick game here. Freehand, and with your eyes open. First, we're gonna put just a straight line down the page. This part not freehand. This is just for comparison. So we got a nice thick line right down our sketchbook, right? And keep in mind, I'm not an artist. I keep this as a way to make rhetorical points about art, even though I suck at art. So we're going to draw 3 shapes. Freehand, carefully, but quickly, we're going to draw a triangle, a square, and a circle. Alright, there we go. 3 shapes. And you know what? Let's make it 4. And an X. PlayStation. Alright, so there's my site. HT. There's my site side, okay? Now the other side of this. Do it with your eyes closed. Okay, so let's see here. My triangle is not complete. My square falls into itself, which and goes above, which I'm reasonably pleased that I even connected it, to be honest with you. My circle, I have a lot of practice drawing circles, to be fair. I have to draw a lot of zeros at work. So that actually turned out pretty good from memory, though as you can see, it's not connected properly. It has to overlap and overshoot it quite a bit before it connects. And then my X has a much more swooshy section right here, much more curved beginning. It's a little unsure of where to connect, and I was really aiming to try to have it be perfectly perpendicular, but as you can see, I have much more room up here or down here than I do up here. The angle up here much greater than the angle down here. So there's a lot of, obviously this is not like some kind of beautiful representation of perfect geometry, and I'm not an artist, so it's not going to be. But it's much more competent, it's much more clean than this side, where I've drawn it blind. Now let's try again. Let's do this experiment a second time, but do things that are not geometry. Let's do, well, it's still geometry. Everything's geometry if you think like a 3D modeler, which I am. But yeah, let's do this again. Sight and blind. Let's draw something more complex. Not much, but slightly more complex. Let's draw a stick figure with a smiley face. And, I don't know, what's a simple shape to draw? A remote control in his hand with a couple buttons on it, alright? So I'm going to just take my time. I'm going to do a nice and smooth stick figure. Clearly identifiable. One arm, second arm. He's got a remote control with a couple buttons on it in his hand. He's got an eyeball, another eyeball, and he's smiling because he's happy that he's got a remote control. Alright. Perfectly identifiable of what it's supposed to be. Let's try it blind. Shit, where's the head? You see how this gets really, really complicated the more you go. I put the labels here. I don't think you even need them. It's very clear to tell which ones I'm doing right and which ones I'm doing wrong. I'm actually reasonably happy with myself that I got the buttons in the damn box for the remote control. But obviously, like, do I even need to go through what's wrong here? The stick goes through his head. The head isn't centered on the body. The head isn't even connected properly. The eyes are fucking, like, down by his cheeks. The mouth is crooked. The arms and legs aren't connected to the main body. There's a lot wrong with that one. That's a very simple image. So the more complex this gets, the harder it gets. So Kyle, being a professional artist, being someone who has to craft it, it makes a lot of sense. And especially since Will is so necessarily connected to the ring, and had been at this time too. A lot of people give Jeff Johns credit for connecting the green ring with willpower when it had always existed that way. Or not always, but had existed that way in the comics for a long time. Needing willpower to use the ring and not being able to be confident in what you're creating because the main thing you use for creation, which is your eye. Yeah, here's an idea, Ian. Point the sharp pencil at your eye. It's not like people will know what you're talking about. Yeah, so like the idea of connecting that to use the blindness not only to destabilize the constructs, but destabilize the ability to create them because it nullifies the self-confidence needed to create them. I will go out and say directly, Mark Waid invented the best possible way to take down a Green Lantern. As far as I know, he was the only person to say, make them blind. He was the first person to say, make one blind, and they will not be able to use the ring. I talked about Justice League Doom being based on JLA, Tower of Babel. Their plan for Green Lantern is fucking stupid. their adaptation, it's a very loose adaptation. Their adaptation for how to take down Green Lantern totally undercuts one of the most brilliant and in-depth character-defining moments of that book for me. I adore this idea. And it's just, it's night and fucking day here. The kind of results you can get. If one of your methods for dealing with the world is suddenly stripped away from you. So I really, really do love that touch. That is quite brilliant stuff. On a character level for Green Lantern. Love it. Best way that Batman came up with how to take someone down. So I want to talk again about the red kryptonite. The irradiated kryptonite would probably be a better way to say it. The only reason I don't like that in the context of the story, because I love what it does to Superman, I think that's really clever, unique, and creative, and it's not just Green Rock, is they go into why Batman created what he did. They go into his reasoning. You even get to read his log about it. Someday I'm sure it's going to come down to just him and me. For a lot of others, I could just wing it if I had to, but not Clark. If anyone requires a methodical and considered response, it's Superman. If it's to the death, that's easy. I have my chunk of kryptonite. I have a pretty good idea of how it works and what it would take to synthesize more. But what if I merely want to stop him in his tracks for a while? Interestingly enough, certain properties of kryptonite persist even when it's undergone change at the atomic level. And this goes into what exactly the rock does. But that he designed the irradiated kryptonite to incapacitate but not kill Superman is great for Batman. Why the fuck does Ra's al Ghul give a shit if Superman lives or dies? It's never explained in the story. You can create headcanon and reasons for it, and we can talk about those. I can say maybe he wants Superman around because he's going to need someone in case there are more galactic threats that are going to hit Earth. I don't think that's a really great explanation, but it at least makes sense. But okay, Ra's al Ghul wants to take out the Justice League so he can take control of the world and not have to worry about them as a threat. Cool. Brilliant. Yeah, totally works. Why not just kill Superman? Why would you want to just incapacitate him? Right? So it's one of these things where it's okay. Yeah, that's just not good. That's just poorly thought out. Mark Waid, what I think happened is Mark Waid got a really, really cool idea for what to do with Superman and how to take him out, but he didn't think to put it in a proper context for the story. So this book is certainly not without its faults, but that's okay. God, the fucking creepiness of transparent skin Superman, though. That is the shit nightmares are made of. Anyway. So the world is just going to hell. No one can communicate with anybody. Planes are falling out of the sky. Doctors don't know how to read medical charts. Ambulances don't know how to read street signs. No one can communicate. World financial markets are in ruin. Fuck yeah, go Ra's al Ghul. And Ra's is slowly planning to make his move. But the Justice League managed to rally together, even though they've been definitely damaged. And they currently don't trust Batman, but they are working with him until the crisis is stopped. They end up saving the day, defeating Ra's al Ghul. I didn't mention, the way Ra's kind of distracted Batman the whole time was to steal the bodies of his parents and threaten to drop them in a Lazarus pit, which really fucked with Batman and totally distracted him and just made him not pay any attention to what was happening with the League at the time. So I quite like that. Waid writes a really, really good Wonder Woman scene where they've got a member of the League of Assassins tied up with the lasso, and he's got a bioweapon in his hands that all he has to do is open it and the city's fucked. But he hasn't done it yet. So Wonder Woman starts to talk to him. You, the magic of the lasso compels you to speak only the truth, so tell me, are you ready to die today? Yes. Really? What if your mask works as well as your comrade's? Comrade died because his gas mask didn't work. Release the virus and you're its first victim. Martyr! I'll be a martyr. No, you won't. Do you think the man who sent you here even knows your name? Who'll remember you? You're trying to, there is no honor in serving Ra's al Ghul. There's only the suffering you bring upon the innocent, and the grief of abandoning everything you know as you draw your last agonizing breath on this earth. And I promise you, the pain will be indescribable. So I ask you again, are you ready to die? No. Such a good scene. I love that. The way Wonder Woman interrogates someone or gets what she wants from someone is to be honest with them. It's beautiful. Anyway, so they end up saving the day, defeating Ra's and Talia's evil plan, yada yada. And then it's time for the fallout. So the League discusses whether or not they trust Batman to be in the League, and they kind of all go through their reasoning. Oddly enough, the most poignant thing for me is Plastic Man. They asked Plastic Man what he thinks. He goes, "Come on, man, he brought you in." And Plastic Man goes, Yeah, he did. I owe him. I know that." Then he just thinks about being cracked open when he was encased in ice. Get him out of here. I really like that. That's a really poignant scene that just kind of works for me. That he can't get over being betrayed like that. So it all comes down to Superman, and Superman hasn't told anyone how he's going to vote. So they decide to go into the meeting room to confront Batman and tell him their votes. And he's left. And of course Superman's last line is yes. Which is really smart because it's a commentary, or it's an answer to a completely different question. But it's also how Superman was going to vote. As to whether or not Batman should stay in the League. I guess that makes you the swing vote. You're the closest thing he has to a friend on this team. How well do you really know him? Or I guess more to the point, how well does he know you? Well, enough to know better than any of us how you'll vote. Yes. Batman knows how Superman would vote. So he left. And the answer is, of course, going to be Superman would vote yes, but Batman knows he's betrayed the trust of the League, so he left of his own volition, rather than be kept around because Superman would vote yes. I love it. It's so good. Anyway. And then there's the fallout of the different members of the Bat family not being trusted anymore. And that's pretty good. I also like how this volume opens, especially since this is a Ra's al Ghul bad guy or villain story where, he wants to rule the world so he can counteract the effects of global warming, yada yada yada. This volume opens with a fill-in story written by Dan Curtis Johnson about the Atom discovering a city of microbes forming on a tumor in a child's brain. Like it's a functioning society in the miniature scale. So rather than cut it out because it's sentient life, clearly, he gets the Justice League to go with him, and they try to convince the rulers of the city to evacuate. They can't survive there, and it turns into a whole thing. They don't want to believe the Justice League. They torture Superman. The League has to escape. It's all, a lot happens in one issue. Ultimately, their city's destroyed, and Superman has to look on as he sees another civilization die. But it's okay because one of the lives escaped and made it to a different part of the body. But anyway, the whole commentary here on this society is killing the planet on which they live, and they just won't listen to reason about changing their ways before violence has to be inflicted. And then you have Ra's al Ghul inflicting violence because humanity won't change its ways and save the world. That's kind of clever shit. That is pretty clever shit. So yeah, just good ass volume. Mark Waid really kills it. There's also a backup story called The Green... Oh, multiple backup stories, my bad. There's a very short one, it's a Superman-Batman story called The Green Bullet, in which someone's tried to frame Superman for a murder, and Batman's doing the investigation to make sure it wasn't Superman. He knows, but he wants to make sure that he's not being biased, since they're friends. So he figures out it's not... He's certain it's not Superman, and then it turns out to be Intergang, and they take him down together. And then we have another bonus story called Revelations with Aquaman and Wonder Woman working together to save some guys who have dived to get some buried treasure, but it was all meaningless and they caused a bunch of problems in the ocean, pollution, yada yada. And so Aquaman and Wonder Woman have to work together to save the day here and work through their differences, as it were. So yeah. It's a good story. Aquaman gets caught in Wonder Woman's lasso and admits that he's attracted to her. So that scene in Justice League has some comic book accuracy to it, I guess. I don't know. Tower of Babel, really strong story though, in my opinion. Really, really well thought out. Mark Waid does kick off his official run on the book with a lot of steam. And I just have never read anything beyond this for any reason. And I don't really necessarily plan to anytime in the near future, but, you know, maybe one day, once I've read all the other comic books. Anyway, that'll do it for this episode of Trade Talk. We'll go on, try to get out of DC for a little while, since I've been doing so many DC series lately. We'll get out of DC for a little while and do some Marvel and some independent stuff for a couple weeks here in the next few weeks of Trade Talk before I go back to anything else. Though I'm really liking going back and doing these long arcs and these runs. I do eventually want to go give a crack at the War Games saga like I did with No Man's Land. So that'll be the next big run I do, I think. Anyway. Everyone, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, bye!
That's not a comic book. Now that's a comic book.